hey, we're recording, we're live. So I'll just go back one slide. This is the Lunch and Learn About Go. Thank you for attending. And let's go. Pun very intended. So I was just wondering, I don't know if I can see you all. Oh yeah, I can see you all. So I want you to raise your hand just to give me an idea or manifest yourself if you've heard of Go before, just to get a rough idea of what the crowd I have here. Okay, really cool. Now, you can keep your hand raised if you've played at least one game of Go in your life. So I see two people with their hand raised. Okay. And I wanted to know, keep it raised if you play regularly. So do both of you play regularly? Kinda, not really, Benjamin. Okay, that's really cool. So it's a lot of new crowd, very exciting. So here's my agenda. So I practiced my talk a little bit. I know it lasts roughly 30 minutes. So that's my Go sales pitch to you to make you as interested as possible. For the remaining time, we can answer questions, discuss anything you want. I've prepared some questions you might want to ask me if you don't have questions that come to mind. We could also do a tour of the platform I use to play Go online if you want. So as I wrote, feel free to react in the chat to anything you see, but please keep questions for the end just to keep the momentum going. I've put some slide numbers if you want to write them down with your questions. Okay, so as Mike said, there's this thing going on with Go and artificial intelligence, and indeed there was a big event in 2016. AlphaGo is the name of a program created by DeepMind at Google with the sole objective of beating the world's best human player at Go. This is a feat that was done for chess, I think in the 80s with Kasparov, but it took many, many years to be able to achieve that feat with Go. And indeed, they achieved it in 2016. It was a monumentous event. Nobody in Asia expected the AI to win. That's how confident they were in human playing ability at the game. It's also a wonderful documentary available on YouTube that I recommend everyone to watch if you haven't seen it. It's a great quality. And so there was a big peak of interest in Go at that time. And basically, I want to give you the Go specs. So why is it so interesting, and what the heck is Go actually? So it's a simple game. It's just a board game played by two players, one against each other, or teams. You can bend the rules to your will. There's many ways to play Go. The game time is roughly 30 to 90 minutes. It came from ancient China's over 4,000 years ago. And it's actually the oldest board game that is still competitively played today. And you can bet it's very competitive, actually. So I put some images here of things that have been found in archaeological searches. People used to carve stones to be able to play Go. That's how old this game is. Usually I imagine cavemen playing Go. It makes me smile. I don't know what people really looked like 4,000 years ago, but it's fascinating that we can get the same playing experience as them. It's a really timeless game. So here I have a little GIF or GIF, I don't know whatever you prefer, of comparing chess to Go, how the game feels and progresses. You can already see if you've played chess, you know that it begins with many pieces and it ends with a combat with less pieces than you began with. In Go, it's the opposite. The game begins with an empty table, with an empty grid, basically, and every turn, people put stones. And I like to think that the comparison between both games, they're both abstract strategy games that from a surface level might look similar, but I really think that chess is more like boxing and Go is more like politics. We like to think that chess is more like war, but if you think about it, it's like you're trying to get a punch to the temple of your opponent by punching their king and knocking them down. In Go, this is not really something that you can do. You have to control the landscape, and it's not something you can do with a single punch. So that's why we sometimes say that Go is a more difficult or deeper game than chess. Not that it's more, I mean, chess players love chess, and there's nothing wrong with chess, but it's a completely different type of game. And one of the first players who brought Go in America was Edward Lasker, who was actually a chess international master, and he said this beautiful quote about Go. He said that the rules of Go are so elegant, organic, and rigorously logical that if intelligent life forms exist elsewhere in the universe, anywhere, they almost certainly play Go. And I will tell you the rules, and I think you will agree, because the rules, it's crazy to think that such simple rules can lead to such a deep game that get you thinking for hours. Before I do that, I want to give you my personal Go timeline. I think it's a little interesting. So we have to go all the way back to ye old 2003. My first contact was with Hikaru Nogo, which is a manga kind of like Pokemon, but it's about a guy who is really bad at Go and just wants to become the best Go player in the world and win all the tournaments. So I was reading that because I was into comics at the time. I actually thought the game was just made up. I didn't even know it was a real game. It took many years. So in 2016, I started collecting board games, and that's, I was getting closer to that medium. In 2019, big event in my personal life, I got a thumb tendonitis from playing too many video games. Oh, that sucks. I was playing my PlayStation Vita, and my thumb just quit. So I had to find new hobbies. Luckily, board games were there for me, and I found a Shut Up and Sit Down review in 2020. Wonderful review, by the way. I also recommend it if you want a quick introduction to Go or show an introduction to your friends. This YouTube channel looks at many modern board games, and it was the first time they looked at Go because Quinn's, the host of the channel, had never played it before. So that got me interested once again. So in 2020, I played my first game of Go. And by 2021, I was fully addicted, even started my little Go club with 8 of my friends. And as of 2022 and over, I'm sure I will never get bored of this game. I can't stop talking about it to anyone who will listen, as you can clearly see. And I don't want you to think that I'm super good at the game. This is actually how I think of myself at the game. I'm not very good, but it doesn't matter because I'm having so much fun. And I think that's wonderful. If you can have fun despite being bad at something, that's the best feeling in the world. So, okay, now the moment you've been waiting for. How do we actually play this game? I'll walk you through the basics. The way this works is you start with an empty grid. The size of the grid can change. There's different standard sizes, but just think you start with an empty grid. Black plays first, then white, and you play on the intersections, as you can see on the picture on the left. All the pieces on the board are equivalent. It's not like in chess where you have a rook and a king and a queen and whatever. All the pieces act the same. There's no difference. Once you place a piece, though, it cannot move. It's like planting a fence post in the ground. You place it and it's there, for better or for worse. You can pass a turn whenever you want. And at the end, it's a game of points, so the player with most points wins. The game ends when both players pass, one after the other, or one player simply resigns. Rule number 1, you surround territory to make points. Here I have put a little very peaceful game of Go example. White took one side, black took the other side. And if you see, I put circles on the intersections of areas completely surrounded by white. If you add up the circles, you come to 29. If you do the same with triangles for black, you end up with 17. And in the lower right, you see I put X's on areas that are surrounded by both colors. We call this unclaimed or neutral territories. They don't count toward points. So in this image, we would say white won because they have the most points. That's one rule. Only 2 more rules to go. We're a third of the way there. Good job, everybody. Second rule is that you can capture stones and that stones are worth points. Okay, we're upping the difficulty up a little bit, but it's not very difficult. You have to imagine when you place a stone on the grid, you have lines emanating from every side of the stone, as I've pictured here. So if you put opposing stones on what we call liberties, for example, on the image on the top right, it would remove the black stone. So the white player plays the final white piece, takes the black stone and puts it next to them. It's a captured stone, and that stone will be worth 1 point at the end of the game. So if we look at the image in the lower left, we could say the A stone has 4 liberties, the 4 triangles. The B group has linked liberties. So in total, it has 7. You would need 7 white stones to capture it. When you go on the side, you have less liberties. So the C stone has 3, and in the absolute corner, the D stone has only 2. So it would be very quick to capture the D stone. Okay, that's the second rule. How is everybody doing? Great job. Final rule, you cannot do this. So this is what we call a ko. You cannot loop forever. So think of the previous rule. You know, you can capture a stone when it runs out of liberty. So in theory, you could go back and forth until one of the players passes out and the other one is declared the winner. But this is boring. We want the game to go forward, so we don't allow this type of play. That's it. These are the 3 rules. We could formalize the rule number 3 like this, where 2 alternating single stone captures would repeat the original board position, also known as a ko in Japanese. It's illegal to play these positions consecutively. And this shape is very classic. People get t-shirts of that shape. It's that classic. What you would have to do if you wanted to recapture the stone that captured you is to play elsewhere. So it takes 2 stones to recapture in this specific ko position. But that's it. That's all the rules. There's nothing else. There's nothing else I can teach you about the rules of Go. And I think that's wonderful. How long did that take? I don't know, like 5 minutes? And now you all are Go players. But here's the impossible challenge of Go. Despite these simple rule set, what makes this game infinitely interesting is that you have to find a way to surround something that can move as fast as you. What I mean by this is that when you play a stone, your opponent also plays a stone. So you have to find a way to somehow get more land than them, even though you play at the same speed. And that's what's really interesting. I'll give you tips to get started, though, so that you can already hit the ground running. So I told about the different board sizes that you can use. There's, as I said, standard board sizes. Usually we learn on a 9x9, just a good size to learn, just big enough to have the real dynamics of a game of Go, but small enough so that the game doesn't last too long. You can migrate or graduate to a 13x13 for a quick game, but really the real game of Go is played on a 19x19, and this is where the game is most fun. I know it looks big and daunting and scary, and it was for me the first time as well, but the more you play and get accustomed, the more you will realize, hey, 19x19 is not that big. You run out of space really quick. So don't be afraid to play on the full board. Next, another tip I want to give you is that what the Go game has is I'm looking for doesn't matter. It has a handicap system to make the game more accessible. Unlike chess, where you have starting positions that are very clear, you can give a head start to the black player if you want. And this is really useful when you want to have a match with someone who has a very different skill set of you. For example, if you want to play with your child, or if you want to play a game with the person who taught you how to play Go. So you would use this handicap system, and as I put in the little graph, the black player would start with a big advantage, considerable advantage, but the white player would really ramp up the territory acquisition. So it's a matter of when does the game end? Is it going to end while black is still on top or while white is on top? And that makes a game that is challenging for both players and still absolutely interesting. However, it should be noted that when you do this, you place the stones on what we call the star points. So if I go back one slide, you see the star points are the points that are a little bit bolder on the board. So these are marks where you would place the handicap stones. That's the only reason you have these points on the board. Next, what I like to call a theorem. It's not a rule, but it's a consequence of the rules. It's what we call 2 eyes make a living shape. If you look at this picture, black is completely surrounded, and this is the surrounding game. So in theory, you would think, oh, they're surrounded, so they're dead. But actually, there is no way for white to capture these black stones, because if white plays in any of the intersections that is a circle, it would be, quote, suicide. they they would need to be able to play two stones at once to fully rid the black groups of their liberties. But since they cannot do this in a single move, well, they cannot play there. And because they cannot play there, black is immortal in that position. So it's a little tricky, but you have to be aware of that because you can use this to your advantage to get into. Sometimes when your group is in trouble, this is what you do to have a proper defense. So that's it. That's all. I mean, that's all the strategies I will give you. Now, how does it feel to play Go? Because it doesn't look like much. It looks very theoretical or very basic. I'll tell you something. Every game feels different and new. It's surprising how, despite these basic elements, how different a game can feel from one to the other. And what I call mindfulness, when you have a Go board in front of you or when you're in the game, you're gonna I don't know if you've played Tetris, but it's kind of like Tetris. You start seeing combinations in your mind and the outside world just disappears. You get super deep into visualizing the game. It's wonderful. It's kind of meditative. And sometimes you have so many opportunities. I think it's like walking in a gold mine full of traps because you say, oh, I can play there, I can play there, I could get a little bit of space there. But sometimes if you stretch too wide, it might be a trap. It might be bad for you. So you never know what will happen. Sometimes it's like, okay, I'll try something, and I don't know, I'll try it. Who knows? But you're always on the edge of your seat. It's hard to describe, but as the game, you add stones on the board constantly, and it's like a Jenga tower at the end. You never know which way the game is gonna collapse because there's so much tension at a certain point. You can't help but always being like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? It's like watching a soccer match or a hockey game, and one thing is for sure, you will always look back at the board in amazement and say, wow, I did this. Remember what that corner? That was interesting. Oh, wow. You can see the whole story of the game because at the end of the game, instead of having less pieces, you have all the story still on the board. So that's a really, really cool feature of the game. Okay, here I have a little game. I want you to visualize who is surrounding what. If you can figure out who won, and if you can spot groups that are in Atari. Atari means that are one stone from being captured, have one liberty left. So I'll stop talking and enjoy the game. As you can see, it gets a little bit tricky now. Who surrounds what? Okay, and here's the game's over. Both players have passed. So white clearly won this one. But as you can see, it wasn't so clear from the onset. Something happened, and black lost a group in the lower left, and that made the entire difference. But that was it, a little 9x9 game, just to get you a taste of how the game looks like in action. Now, for some real Go proverbs, because Go can teach you a lot of things, and I find it interesting that over the many years that Go has existed throughout humanity, there's many proverbs that arise. So I'll list some of you for your enjoyment. For example, each move is an investment. This is a very basic proverb, but it really emphasizes how you have to make moves that are interesting and ask many questions to your opponent and leave as many doors open as possible. And actually, many CEOs in Asia use this philosophy to make this decision. Another one is the greedy do not get success. If you need something to demonstrate how greed is not the way to happiness, Go is the best way. If you overstretch or if you're impatient and get the rhythm wrong, you will get punished every time. And it's great because it makes you have to strive always for the right balance of, I know how much I can take of the board. I don't want to take too much, otherwise my groups will get disconnected. Another one is respect your opponent. That also goes with not being too greedy. It's not like chess. Well, I don't want to speak too much about chess, but you don't want to trick your opponent and make them fall in traps, so to say. You want to negotiate them. You want to negotiate with them and get in a position of power so that they can only accept the worst option every time. And this is the true way to victory. Otherwise, if you try to trick your opponent too much, you might end up just tricking yourself and losing. That happens to me a lot. Another one that I like is the empty triangle is bad. And this is very, might sound strange. I don't want it to sound obvious. I want you to wonder why. This might look strong, but it's actually a very problematic shape. Not, I mean, it's still better than I don't want, it's complex. I'll say that. It's mysterious. I want you to experience this, but remember, if you play a game of Go, that making this shape, it might look strong, but there's often a better move than this. So this is a shape to usually avoid, even though it might look strong. Don't follow Proverbs too blindly. Sometimes making a bad triangle, empty triangle might be a good shape, might be the right answer. You never know. So don't get stuck in a box as well. But there's a whole list of Proverbs to go through if this is how you like to learn. But also try to put your own personal spice in the game and try original things. They might fail, but you might have great success, and that might lead you to have your own style of play. A quote from the AlphaGo documentary that I liked is, "It's okay to lose as long as you played your best." You're not playing to win. People often say that the Go game is like a mirror. You're not playing against your opponent. Both of you are playing against older versions of yourself. You're trying to play better than the old you. So losing, it's fine. It's fine to lose to your opponent. It's fine to resign. It's difficult for the ego, but you really want to challenge yourself instead of trying to be better than the other. And finally, my favorite proverb is use Go to make friends. This is why I give this talk today. This is why I have a Go club. It's a great game about connection, even connecting on the board and connecting to other humans, connecting with humans in history. It's so great. I'm having so much fun, and I hope I'll have the opportunity to play with you all. Now, what I don't know is what proverbs will you come up with. I promise you will come up with some sayings about Go. You will come up with some, oh, I remember from this game, this type of play is bad, this is good. And you will often even be able to make parallels between the game of Go and your life. Some situations in life, some mental headspace in life will be the same as a specific mindset you were in a specific game of Go while you were winning or losing. So you will come up with proverbs, you will pass them on to others, and that's really part of the fun. Oh, I hear you all. You're saying, I see it in your eyes. Okay, you got me enough. Stop selling me Go. I want to play right now. I got you. I got the good stuff. So how to start playing. Until COVID ends, I recommend my favorite website to play is onlinego.com. There's many free encyclopedias online akin to Wikipedia. This is the best website I know, Sensei's Library. You can, remember, start on a small board to learn and try to graduate to a full board as you get experience and confidence that you know, that you understand the game. Don't be afraid to lose. Just try to get a little better every time and play to simply experience the beauty of the game. Winning is not really important. In fact, if you play with handicaps, expect to lose 50% of your games. This should be normal. However, if you lose, ask your opponent what were your mistakes. That can help you patch the holes in your strategies. And remember to ask for handicaps to balance games against stronger players. That way you can play with literally everybody. So I very much await your challenge. You who's listening, I await your challenge. And that's it for my rambling. So now I'm ready at this time to hear your questions, comments. I just want to point out that I've created the Go Game Slack channel on our Slack Nesto group. And I will stop the recording right now and hear your feedback. Thank you, everyone.